Well met. This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be Cosmo. Oh, snap. Cosmo.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap on a flexible podcasting schedule. And unfortunately, I've had to take that to new heights of literality. I've been pretty under the weather the past week. We missed another week because of scheduling. It's just been a bit nuts. Although I'm very pleased to be here tonight with Nate and ZombiesGoNomNom. I'm feeling a little better and excited to talk a little bit of Snap. I think it was a good junction to have a show. How are you fine folks tonight?
Happy to be here. Happy Easter, everybody. And yeah, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. And let's talk some Snap.
6 days of fever. Do not recommend. But yeah, it's gone. So we're gonna have a little bit of an interesting show format tonight. We do have limited time, but I think we have some great topics. So let's just dive right in. So first things first, it is Easter today, and happy Easter for all those who celebrate. It also happens to be the Trans Day of Visibility today as well, and wanted to just shout out that it is a holiday that I celebrate with my LGBTQ friends. I have a friend that is a very close friend of mine is trans, and I've been educated about a lot of issues and challenges within the community of late. And I think that Snap is, the community is a lot of things, good and bad, but one thing it is a very welcoming and inclusive place. And that's something that is really important to me and something I'd like to see continue. And so SnapDex, the Twitter account that retweets whenever I have a minor accomplishment, thank you, had a really awesome tweet today to celebrate the day, and wanted to have everyone show off their Sera variants, and it was a lovely thread. And I don't know much about the character Sera. I'm not a big Marvel guy, at least not as big as others like Nate. But Sera is a trans character. I didn't know this, and I thought that was really awesome because Sera is one of my favorite characters in the game, both mechanically and just aesthetically. So yeah, I thought we would give SnapDex a shout out for an awesome idea, and maybe just show off a couple of our Sera splits and kind of keep the Sera split train going.
Nice. Yeah, here's yours right here. These are nice. Oh, that Rianne with the gold background.
Yeah, so I have been quite lucky with Sera. I've split Sera fewer times than some cards where I've gotten a great split just once. So very lucky. So they appear in order of acquisition. So first was the hero variant from last Christmas. Actually, not last Christmas, the Christmas prior. And I have a green Crackle hero variant Sera. Pretty awesome. I think the green goes nice with the purple. And then I got a great split on the original Chibi Sera with a gold Crackle, and it's inked. Also really awesome. Used that one a lot. And I had to get a good split on the Rian Sera, which released middle February, if I'm not mistaken. And I got it in gold, which is awesome because I really like the colors that Rian uses with a white Crackle flare. So 3 Crackles on Sera, and yeah. I am always trying to force Sera, even at times when perhaps maybe it is unwise to do so. So those are my 3. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Zombies, you got a nice one here.
Yeah, I got the hip one. Sera's always been one of my favorite characters, and this isn't my favorite variant of her, but it just happens to be the best split one I have. I think my favorite's probably the basically the other 2 you showed, Blue. The Rian one and the bundle one. I really like the hero one from like the music video, and I always thought it was like one of the coolest ones. And Sera's always been one of my favorite cards from like the very beginning of the game. So it's cool to see she has sustained relevancy, even though if it kind of goes up and down at times.
Is this a rainbow Crackle?
It is a rainbow Crackle.
Golden
I don't think
rainbow.
there's like an orange. There's certain colors there isn't. That's how you kind of know if it's rainbow. Because I don't think there's an orange crackle on its own. It's just part of the rainbow.
Right.
There are a few like that, but yeah, rainbow crackle is really cool. I got matching ones with this and Dan Hip Monkey, so I thought that's kind of cool.
Very nice.
Another card.
Myself, I'm really not a split chaser. So here's Sera with the with my trademark foil with red.
Classic.
You know what? The only card that I split, which was on accident, was like I got that demonized Shang-Chi, and I just wanted it to look like this. And the first, like, I hit infinite and cracked it, and it was gold, and I was like, no! And everyone's like, what is wrong with you? And it's like, it's cool, but
you
it's
wanted
not...
to match. Yeah,
I just want it to match. I just want but yeah, I'm gonna have to read about Sera, because I've been reading comic books for ages, but like I was reading Spawn when like Angela started out as a Spawn character in Image Comics, and like that's where I was introduced to Angela. And when she like transitioned into Marvel, like I know nothing about it, so I'm gonna have to. It's exciting, good stuff.
Yeah, she's a cool character. I think most people had no idea who Sera was before Marvel Snap, or at least like I'd say a majority. I know I certainly didn't, because she's not really part of like mainline MCU stuff, which is where that's like the baseline for a lot of people. It's kind of like Arrow. I find it funny that like in the early days of the game, Sera and Arrow were like two of the most defining characters and cards. Well, cards more than characters, but and like nobody had ever heard of them before, and I found that really funny. And I was also one of those people. I had never heard of them before, but it's kind of cool to learn the lore of some of these more obscure characters.
Every time I hear Sera, my brain automatically is tuned to attacking does not cause Sera Angel to tap.
Yeah, the classic magic.
Yeah, that was a popular card when we first started playing Magic, because it was a flyer. It stayed untapped and it was uncommon. So
yep, I have many a Sera Angel.
Yeah, I was on Team Sera Angel, not Team Sengir Vampire. So yeah, I love, Nate, that your trademark is the foil with the red border. It's so unique to you. It's wonderful. So I'm glad that you still had it ready to go to share. That's awesome.
But all my cards, I try to get them like this, whether it's a variant or what. I just haven't found a variant that I really want. Although I really like the Flaviana one. It's pretty cool with where she's holding.
Yeah, that
axe.
one's pretty sweet.
That's great.
That's an ultimate though, which is a shame. I've had that pinned for like months, and I'm never gonna buy it. But I just have it pinned there so I can look at it.
Yeah,
I like the Dan Hip one. I know you said it's not your favorite. I think
it's good. Sarah just has a lot of good ones.
Yeah, that probably would be the one I'd go for if I had a fourth split. I think it's pretty good Dan Hip. I like the Dan Hip.
Yeah, she has a lot of good ones. It's definitely a solid selection to choose from for Sera.
They just need to make a Venomized one, and I'll buy it.
there you go.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Well, again, shout out to Snapdex for such an awesome idea, and I'm glad that the thread got a lot of traction. And I'll link it in the chat a little bit later if you all wanted to go see it. But if you're not following Snapdex already, you absolutely should. An excellent source for decks, and especially in metas where perhaps they're a little solved like this one. So appreciate what they do, and again, for the retweets and for creating the inclusive, safe community that we all deserve. All right, so moving on. This is an unusual time for us to do the show. We're at the literal end of the season. The season's going to reset on Tuesday. This is Sunday, the Sunday before. I don't even know if I'm going to get through an Infinite Conquest or not, so stay tuned on that. I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a recap on the cards that were released this month. I think it would drive a pretty interesting conversation. And I'm going to be asking everyone, we're going to review each card. I'm going to be asking everyone the same 3 questions. Did you get the card? Do you believe the card is a must-have? It's just okay or disappointing? And did you get a variant with the card? Because I think that variants for cards, especially newer ones, have become a little bit more of a premium. And a lot of times, maybe there isn't something suited to your tastes. So yeah, let's just dive right in with the first card that was released this month, one that I personally was very excited about, Pixie. So I got the card. I did get a variant for it. Not the Spotlight, but one of the ones that released for 700. I got
The
it.
only one that released for 700, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think most of these, they've gotten a little better where it's not just the Spotlight or Bust anymore, but it's still like one variant. Each of these has basically had one variant outside the Spotlight, which it's nice that it's back, but it is a little sad that, you used to feel like we had more options when a card came out in terms of like cosmetic stuff.
I think I used keys, but I can't remember how many I used. I think it was like one or two. And I think Pixie, we knew it wasn't going to be a must-have card. I think it's a little disappointing, but I do think it has potential in certain decks. The best Pixie deck I actually played was the one that you came up, Zombies, with the weekend mission. But all in all, I think if you passed on Pixie, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a must-have card by any means, though it is. I thought it was going to be stone cold unplayable. Like, I thought the card was actually going to be very bad, and after playing with it, I think that my opinion changed. I don't think it's necessarily a bad card. By no means a card you need to own, especially to be like competitive. But I do think it is more fun than I thought it would be. But Snap has the whole weird thing with the release cycle where this came out and everyone was playing Mobius, and then Mockingbird was shortly after, and that made more people play Mobius, and so it's kind of one of the flaws of the game when everyone's on the new hat card of the week, and so everyone jumps to counters and makes it hard to really evaluate some of these cards right after they release because like it's very feast or famine.
So if I were to glean your answers from your assessments, you did get the card. Did you use tokens or did you use keys?
I used keys. I'm pretty sure I'm like 3 for 3 on 4 key weeks, which feels really bad.
Oh,
it's not
very
been great.
nice.
And it's mostly been for, at least with Pixie, it was the Rian Mobius, so I was okay with spending more keys because I got Pixie in that like 2 or 3, but I had to go all the way for the Rian Mobius. So I wasn't that upset about that, but the weeks where there's only like I only want the new card and I don't want the other stuff, if that ends up being a 4 key week, I end up being kind of miffed because it just feels bad to set resources on fire for things I don't want and will not use.
So it's a meme card, so it's not disappointing. It kind of was where you expected it to be, maybe even
it's better than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot worse. I thought it would be stone cold unplayable, and I actually enjoy playing with
playable.
So
playable
like
meme card.
I don't even. So I think when I say meme card, it means it's like bad, and I don't think Pixie's bad. Pixie's just like a high roll card, right?
All right.
Like it's very it varies a lot how good or bad it is. But it's like much more playable than I thought it would be, which is cool because it makes the game function in kind of like a different way. But also I think it's one of those cards that's very fun to play and much less fun to play against because you can't when Mr. Negative flips a card, you know what to expect. When Pixie flips, you have no idea what to expect if you're playing against it, and that can be a little like, what do I do?
I played an Infinite Conquest game earlier today against a Pixie deck that snapped every time they got Pixie, and I had a lot of fun because the fun is zero.
Yeah, I definitely, it's not like Mr. Negative. I would not be snapping on getting Pixie. You snap when you draw like, oh, I have a 1-cost Iron Man or something.
Yeah.
But you gotta wait to see. Like, it's not like Mr. Negative where you're like, oh, I got the card. That's the thing about Pixie is like your deck needs to do things that are not just Pixie to win, but Pixie can help accelerate winning. But your deck needs like an actual game plan without her. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time.
This is one of the few where I got it using keys. My mic is a little bit low. I don't know what's going on. I got it using keys. I got it. I kind of like I was planning on not getting it, and then we kind of chatted about like, oh well, you could use it with Mobius in high Evo, and I was like, oh, I'll do it. And so I got it. I ended up with I got the Spotlight variant as well because I liked it. Although I had to plow through a whole mess of like keys to get it.
That's a lot of keys. Yeah.
The card is okay. It's more of a like I wouldn't say that it's required at all. like
No.
get it. It's fun, but I wouldn't like. I coupled it. I played High Evo with that and Mobius, and like if you couple it with Mobius, it's like well you get
You kind of have to mitigate the downside.
yeah you get all the bonuses and none of the like
yeah, all the high roll, none of the low roll.
yeah,
basically.
but I don't think it's required. I mean, if you want to get it,
No,
and
it just
goof
makes
around
it
with
better.
like yeah,
like
but
it makes all pixie decks better having Mobius, because then it just there's no bad case. Like you can still play your 1-drops for 1 instead of like 5 or whatever. If you
it's
get them later.
definitely a high roll card, and I don't think that you need it. So don't yeah, I wouldn't
I think most
advise
people
anybody
pass on
to
Pixie, and that's fine. Like
yeah.
it appeals to a very specific group of player, and it's fine.
Very good. All right. Well, let's move on to the next card. Probably the one that warrants the most discussion. Mockingbird. So I got Mockingbird. I think I used tokens. I can't recall. Do I think this card is a must-have? I think this is interesting. I think if you play Thanos, it's a must-have. Although we have an OTA upcoming next Thursday, 2 days after the season resets. So we'll see if it's still a must-have after that. Mockingbird saw play in a lot of different decks, and the one that I experimented with mostly was the Loki deck with it. And my conclusion was that I preferred it without Mockingbird. I still see Mockingbird and Loki. I don't think it's a must-have there.
Most have dropped it from what I've seen, because Loki just doesn't play enough cards to reduce it to like where it's really unfair, unless you like top deck it after you played Loki and played Loki cards. But that's such a fringe case. Like
Yeah,
it feels like it's better in a lot of other decks than Loki, which is interesting.
I did get a variant with it. There was a pretty awesome Bermuda Triangle variant that released the same day, so that was kind of neat. So I had to get that.
That one was nice.
And I mean, honestly, I think that like if you got it, unless you're a big Thanos player, you're probably a little disappointed. It's still pretty good. There's some zoo applications that are fringe. I think the real question I have is will it continue to be an uncontested Thanos card? Because despite some balance changes to Thanos that we're going to be reviewing later, it's still the best card, or one of the best cards, and one of the best decks.
This card is hard carrying Thanos.
Oh yeah,
like,
this card
Thanos
is amazing.
but like this is the reason why Thanos is still a tier 1 deck, in my opinion, and why it was able to shrug off the pretty big nerfs to the stones.
But yeah.
Yeah, but like Cull Obsidian, you're paying 4/4. This card you're paying like 1 to 0 for a lot of games. Even worst case in Thanos, it's like a 3/9. 3/9s are pretty good. I actually really like this card. I think this card has been really fun to brew around because it lets me put Squirrel Girl in decks, and I've always liked Squirrel Girl. And the fact that you can play a Squirrel Girl and then play a 3/9 is pretty cool. Like, I actually think this is one of the most fun cards to brew around, and it annoys me how Thanos gets to play it without having to actually work around it. Like, Thanos just gets to say, ha, I'm playing a Thanos deck, so I get the benefit of Mockingbird for free. Whereas every other Mockingbird deck, it's like, oh, I actually have to consider how I'm reducing the cost of this card. Thanos gets to do it by doing the thing it already wanted to do, which is play the stones. I think that's kind of lame, and I think that this card shouldn't work in Thanos, honestly. I think this card should not work with the stones.
I fixed the artwork for you.
Yeah, it's a 1, not a 0. Yeah, it's silly in Thanos, and I'm pretty sure they don't want to touch it because they want it. They like that it's being good in other decks, and it's more fair in those other decks than Thanos. So I really hope that if they're gonna go for a change on Thanos again, I really hope this card doesn't get nerfed for the sake of it's too good in Thanos, because then that would make it worse in all the other. Or if it does get nerfed, nerf it in a way where it only nerfs it in Thanos. Like, make it not work with the stones, because I'm going to be really annoyed if they make it's kind of like what happened to Blob. Blob was obviously justified because it was super overpowered, but Blob went from being a card you could play in multiple decks to a Thanos only card, and it was still incredible in Thanos. I would be really upset if that happened to Mockingbird, where they nerf it. The nerf does enough damage to kill it in most of the quote unquote fair decks that are running this card, but it's still just too good not to run in Thanos. and I'm really hoping they don't do that. And I would be really sad because I've had a lot of fun doing like Zoo or Patriot, or there's like a lot of ways you can work around this card. I had like a neat Lady Deathstrike deck. There are a lot of neat things you can do with this card, and it's fun to like have to build your deck in a way where you're trying to reduce the cost of the card, and you get a nice reward for it. But it's way too free in Thanos, and I think if this card didn't work in Thanos, I think Thanos would actually be in a relatively balanced state, dare I say it. Like, I think the fact that you're getting like a 1/9 or a 0/9 is the big thing that is letting Thanos keep up after the significant nerfs to the stones. And if you took that away from Thanos, I think it would finally be a quote unquote fair deck. It would probably still be pretty good, but I don't know if it would necessarily be like tier 1 like it is right now. And I bought the Bermuda Triangle thing too. I think it's one of the best variants that's come out in like a long time, in my opinion. I like that one a lot.
Pretty sweet.
But yeah, it's a must-have if you want to play Thanos. And if you don't, I still think out of all the cards this month, it's the best and probably tied for me with like most fun to brew around. So like I think it's definitely the all-star car of the month outside of like the past one.
Right.
Yeah, man, this card is insane. I mean, I was playing a lot of Thanos, and it's an instant add to that deck. You're never paying full price for it. It's 3 or less almost always, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's got a little bit more utility because I've been seeing it more so earlier in the month, but in some like Zoo kind of decks, which is off meta. But also like I've been seeing a lot of funky like Patriot decks lately.
Yeah,
she's like
popular.
She's an auto ad.
Sure, especially with Mysterio, because the Mysterio counts as 3 cards that started outside of your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think she's great. I didn't get any of the what do you call variants for her,
Right.
but I like the base art anyways. I'll
Good art.
Yeah, they'll have one eventually that I'm sure I'll pick up, but it's cool. The card I think is great. If you missed it, I'm sorry. I think this one is a good one. Yeah, I got no qualms with it. I used I think I used keys on this one also, but I think I got it in like 1 or 2. Oh, this is the one
here.
This is the one that I think I got it in 2, right? Because I got the I don't know what week it was. I get them all mixed up, and it's been a long month. But I did get Hellfire Kitty Pride, and so whatever week that was.
I think
was that Cannonball week?
Cannonball week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was Cannonball week.
Maybe I either got her in 1 or I spent tokens. I don't remember anymore.
Ghost Spider and Man Thing was that.
Unless you didn't update your game and got Miss Marvel instead of Ghost Spider, which was
Right.
very, very funny. And they fixed that rather quickly, but I know quite a few people who benefit from that. So it pays to not necessarily immediately update your game sometimes on patch
Marvel
day.
Snap Crime does pay.
It does. It definitely does. Because, I mean, I think most people said this was going to be the best week because Mockingbird looked insane. And Miss Marvel, if you didn't have her, was like one of the best cards to get from Spotlights. Even though, funnily enough, she actually doesn't see quite as much play as she used to, even though she's still a good card.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I don't think anyone was super surprised that Mockingbird ended up being really, really good. I think that was kind of expected. And I won't be surprised if this card does get like a nudge down, whether that be maybe it costs 1 more, maybe it has like slightly less power. And I wouldn't hate that, but please do not murder this card and make it an only Thanos card. I will be so incredibly sad. Like I think it's really just Thanos that is unfair, and I don't think it should die for the sins of Thanos.
Like Psylocke?
Yeah, Psylocke's a good example. The funny thing is like I can understand the reasoning. We'll talk about it more when we get there, but it's very silly to me that they're like, this is exactly what Thanos needed. He was always winning games by 1 power. It's like, yeah, okay. Sure.
It's like the Sauron nerf, right?
Yeah, just shave a power off of it every month until something changes.
All right, so the next card was Cannonball, and I spent 4 keys this week because I wanted the Hellfire Gala Kitty Pride. I played precisely enough games of Cannonball to get my weekly tokens refunded, and I didn't have much hope for this card. I know some people swear by it. I guess it's kind of cool, the animation when it like leaves the rock. as we talked about last time, but like, I think if you miss this one, unless you're like a big fan of like the card and the interaction, I don't really see it being a playmaker. Although they could always buff it. I feel like if there was a buff candidate for this month, it probably would be this card. Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah.
I tried it, man. I was excited for this when it first came out, like
Mhm.
before they changed it pre-release. I
Yeah.
thought it sounded really cool, and then they
It
changed
was
it.
really bad.
This card,
It was really bad.
this
when
card
they,
is
before they changed it.
this card is booty, like, and not good booty. Like, this card sucks. I don't have anything good to say about it. I really tried it, and it's cute when it works, but like a lot of times it'll bump the card into the other lane, and then you'll still lose. Like, it's not like I heard somebody say that it was like a replacement for Shang-Chi, and I was like, man, you were sniffing the copium a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's the justifying release purchase
Oh
week.
man, it's not
Yeah,
good. I mean, I got it. I got really lucky. I used 2 keys that week. I got the first one I got was the Hellfire Kitty, which I really
Nice.
wanted, and then I got Cannonball number 2, and I was like, all right, I'm done. It's great.
Yeah.
I lucked out. This is what I get for using like 6 the last week, and so anyways,
Yeah.
but the card is trash. I wish that it was cool. I mean, I like the idea of it. It just doesn't. It has been bad for me every time I've played it. It's been bad.
So I've had a change of heart with Cannonball. Cannonball, I was so uninspired by this card. It is the first card in a long time I legit skipped doing like my day one decks video, which I do for like every card. Even if I don't plan on buying the card, I at least brew some decks. But I think part of that was also, I believe he was coming out while the Thanos meta was still like before we got the stone nerf to Thanos. Was instead of tier 1, Thanos was like tier S, and he was making the game pretty miserable. And so with that in mind, I was just like, what is this card supposed to do? And fresh off like the tailwind of Mockingbird being like so busted in Thanos, it was just like, what are we doing here with this card? And I wasn't going to buy it. I was planning on skipping it. But then I saw someone in KM's Discord posted a junk list that looked really cool. I've always liked junk. Like, I played junk way back before it got the Annihilus stuff and was made more meta. So I was always a fan of the archetype. And it's cool because Cannonball has kind of reinvigorated that archetype a bit. And I think he actually is, if you are a junk enjoyer, if you like playing like the Debris Polaris classic junk, it does have Annihilus stuff now too. But if you like that kind of deck, I think Cannonball is actually like a must-have to play that deck. Like it's not a replaceable card, and it significantly makes that deck better. And I played a bunch of that deck, and I really like it. So my tune changed on the card because of that. It's very niche. And I think this is what a lot of cards in Marvel Snap should be. Not all cards. You want some cards that are like really good in a lot of homes. But I think it's okay to have a card that is really good in like 1 or 2 specific decks. And that is what Cannonball is. He's not a card most people need, but if you enjoy like that, or the other place I've seen him in, which I don't think is required, like it is in this junk version I'm talking about, is some people have run in Galactus, which is kind of funny, because you can use it to blow up a thing post Galactus. Like if you lose priority, you can use it to a lot of those Galactus lists were playing like Professor X. So if you lock a lane with X, you can use Cannonball to seal another lane. And he's good in the junk deck because you essentially lock one lane by clogging it with like Goblin or Debris or Polaris or whatever. And then Cannonball just wins you the other lane a lot of the time because you just knock their biggest thing out to the lane you aren't winning anyway because the other lane's full, and then you win. The best part about this card is the fact that when you're streaming with it, when he's about to win you the game, you get to yell Cannonball. And that's very fun. So yeah, I thought this card was going to be terrible, and it ended up being one of my more favorite cards of the month. But that's just because like it found the perfect placement in a deck I liked that I feel like hasn't been good in a while. Like junk has been fine with the Annihilus stuff, but a lot of that stuff moved away from being really like clog your opponent as much. It really just became like, hey, I'm going to give them a void. And that's all the clogging I'm doing, especially after they made the change so you don't send the rocks over with Debris anymore. So I really liked this brought back like a Debris junk style deck. And I think if you like that very specific deck, Cannonball is a card you want to own. So yeah, he kind of changed my opinion on the card, which is cool because I was very very down on this card.
I'm glad you like it. I tried it in junk and it was okay, but I struggled with it. That being said, I very well could have been playing it wrong or just didn't put in enough games because I kind of felt like it was underwhelming. But like, I don't know.
Yeah, you really have to set up for it to work. And also, I found that deck in particular was pretty good versus Thanos because Thanos, they play all the stones, so they're naturally filling up their board. So if you clog them a little bit, and then Cannonball, I mean, it's kind of a meme, but it does work where you can use it as a blob counter because blob can't move. So it always kills blob. But again, Shang-Chi would do something similar. I found this more flexible than Shang, though, because of the fact that I feel like there are quite a few decks right now which aren't running like these huge Shangable targets. I feel like there's less big stuff than there was like, I don't know.
That's why Mockingbird is 9. It's perfect.
Yeah. So the fact that you can like this card has enabled some pretty big power swings for me where he's putting a lot of power on the board and also removing a lot of power from the opponent. But you have to use it in a deck that allows you to do that, right? Like you said, if you're just running, like if the other 2 lanes, he can knock it into one of those other lanes. It's kind of like when you Juggernaut when you have a Storm lane one, and it's like a 50-50 whether it like wins you the game if it goes the wrong way. To use this card right, you need to have like make sure one of their lanes is full or locked down with like X or Galactus or whatever.
Yeah. I think if you missed it,
and
you were
did anyone
okay,
get
though.
a Cannonball variant? I didn't.
Yeah, I got the variant. It's pretty nice. I liked it. It was a 700, so
Okay.
I went for it. Although I kind of like the base art. My favorite, I think, was actually like the Pandart variant, but I was not spending spotlights on this card. Like I like it, but not enough to set that many extra resources on fire.
Same.
It's also nice that he ducks Shang. So like I've had people like try and Shang me on the final turn, and he'll like take power out of their lane, and then he also doesn't get Shanged. So that's handy.
Card was probably the second most hyped card this month after Mockingbird, War Machine, and I got the cards. I got all the cards this month. Kind of odd. I was mostly driven by variants. I did want to play with this card. I think it's pretty okay. I think it's good. It's a 4 cost, although you generally want to be playing it on 5, although not always. Honestly, I think it performed worse than I thought it would.
I think a lot of people overrated this card.
Yeah, X is still really good. In fact, I think it plays really well with X. I like that deck you made, Zombies, War Machine, Pixie, and X, and all that. I didn't think it was a great deck, truthfully. Like, I mean, talking about queuing into Destroy or Discard or Thanos. But it was probably the best deck. So I think this is a little bit disappointing. I don't think that this is, at least right now, going to be a must-have, although I do think it's a decent card to have because it kind of goes into some archetype adjacent decks that are not super common. So if you're like an off-meta player, this is like a good card to own. I got the Blueprints variant because those are awesome, and it was 700 only. So that was like what made it worth it as well. I got the cool Blueprints variant, and yeah, I don't think I'll be playing a whole lot of it. So a little disappointing. Maybe we'll just go through this one real quick. Nate, did you get this one? I can't recall.
I did, and I like it actually, but I have to give credit to Safety, who brewed up a bunch of like wonky decks. But I really like Lane Lock as an archetype, and I feel like this kind of brought it back. And Safety posted a bunch of decks that I played with War Machine, and it was fun. And there's just something fun about playing like War Machine on 5, like Into Hope or something, and playing like Infinite and
yeah, and you can do Infinite. You can go Hope, War Machine, Infinite on 5, which is a fun.
Yeah, or what's the other one? The 1/7 Thanos card.
Ebony Maw. Yeah, those are basically the
right?
2 cards that this made more relevant. And that's cool, but like it's niche. There isn't a whole lot of stuff you're doing with this card because like there aren't that many cards that have big restrictions. Cull Obsidian was also used a little bit, right? Where you don't have to play it in a 1. Some people tried Crossbones, but that seemed pretty copium. It's neat. It's fun. But it's a niche card, like for sure. And it's funny, I don't actually think it is that great in most lockdown lists because like most lockdown lists already had ways to get into the lockdown lane. So it's kind of like hard to take a whole turn playing a card that lets you play into a lockdown lane when you have like Doctor Doom or Vision or Jeff or whatever.
Yeah.
But it did enable a type of lockdown that hasn't been around in a long time, and that is Legion lockdown. And it definitely is a bit of a meme, but it can work. And I actually grabbed an Infinity border with it. And the combo is you go Storm, War Machine, Legion, the Storm lane, and then there is no turn 6.
Oh, gross.
It is full. And I got quite a Legion actually carried me through most of my Infinity Conquest games that run, whether it was doing that combo or whether it was I scam people with like borrowed no name multiple times. It was really funny. Like one guy I just passed like the whole game, and I think they thought I was AFK, and they snapped, and I just played Legion on the final turn, and they lost.
That's hilarious.
And then another guy knew it was coming because they saw the Legion a different game, and so they thought they were going to play for like tiebreakers, but then I changed it so the bar wasn't there anymore and won that way. So Legion's a lot of fun with this card and the Storm stuff. You're not guaranteed to win if you go Storm, War Machine, Legion. Like you still need power and whatnot to like win the game, but like it's really funny when it works.
Yeah, I like it, but you know the problem is when the card comes out, then you get inflated like stats for like a week.
Yeah, you can't judge it,
and
well.
so
like,
you really can't by
hard.
the first week because everyone wants to try the shiny new thing, and so
you
it's
can't
like,
play Professor X lockdown stuff while everyone is trying to play this card. Like that's why the deck I shared with Blue with like Pixie, I didn't play it a whole lot this week because everyone was playing a War Machine, and if they're playing War Machine, you're at a disadvantage playing a Professor X deck. But now, you know, in 2 days when everyone's trying Bear and Mordo or whatever, I think it'll be a lot better because nobody's playing War Machine anymore.
right,
And
right.
I think he has a place. That one of the coolest things I liked about this is the fact that I could play War Machine on. So you ramp out Professor X, whether that's with Pixie or Ravonna to get him down on 4. The idea is you play Professor X on turn 4, you play War Machine on turn 5, and then it fixes one of the annoying problems that Professor X decks had with Doctor Doom, which is Doctor Doom was less value if you were playing Professor X because you couldn't get a Doom bot in the X lane. But now if you play War Machine, you can play Doctor Doom in the X lane. So that can like flip that lane if you weren't winning it, or if they were going to move Jeff or something. And you still get Doom bots in the other lanes. And I really like that. And also I like the fact that deck gets to play War Machine, Iron Lad, and Iron Man. Like I just wanted to play all those cards together because it's like thematic.
Yeah.
And it actually works pretty well because, you know, War Machine copying X or copying Iron Man is really good. It's good with Pixie. I've been very pleased with that deck. It's been kind of the deck I've been using for quests quite a bit, and it's been fun.
This one,
right.
Not a must-have though. You do not need to own this card, and it was definitely overhyped. And I got the Blutrane variant too.
I used one key and got already owned, which bumped me up over the limit that I needed of tokens, so I just bought it with tokens.
Oh gosh.
Nice. Yeah, I got this one with tokens. I didn't want any of the other stuff.
I didn't buy any of the variants. I really like the Pandart one, but I'm not using. I'm absolutely not like cruising through keys to get it. So
for sure,
base art is good though.
Yeah, it is good.
And the last card we're going to look at was the Battle Pass card. And we all got the Battle Pass, so we all got the card. I got the Battle Pass variant, the Pandart variant, although this one is very reminiscent of Kim Jacinto style. I like it, so I didn't get another variant, which is awesome. Battle Pass variants have always been really good. Obviously, this card is acquired through the Battle Pass, so I acquired it with the real currency of Marvel Snap, not credits, not gold, not tokens,
not
but
Ben Bro bucks.
You cash scaled to the USD equivalent of my local currency. Hope Summers,
best card of the month.
Oh yeah, this card is great.
I have basically only been playing with this card, and I think that it's really, really good, and I think it's funny. The meta is so warped that I think it kind of flew under the radar a little bit, which is kind of weird to say because it's not in a few of the top decks, so you don't see it as often as you think that you might see it. It isn't Thanos though, so watch it
Big
get
boost
nerfed
to
next
Thanos.
Thursday.
Well,
Yeah.
we went pretty hard into it last episode, but like I don't know. I could still see it getting hit to only allowing a bump like once per turn instead of multiple times per turn. I guess we'll see. But I love the card. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful, it's strong. I think the best thing about this card is the fact that it is playable in a variety of decks instead of just going into one deck.
Yeah.
The last like 3 months of Battle Pass cards have all been this goes in one very specific deck, and if you don't want to play it there, well, you're not playing the new card because it is trash. And Hope is, I think she's on like the upper level of what you want a pass card to be. Like you definitely don't want all cards from the past to be this strong, but I think it's okay to have a strong pass card, and I like when it encourages a variety of like styles of play, and I feel like that's what this card does. Although I think it also does bring the question of, hey, cost reduction was always really strong, so they printed a thing to kind of make cost reduction have a check in Mobius. And I think we're getting to the point now where I'm starting to wonder, do we need a check like that for excess energy? Because as we get more and more excess energy cards, and
Red
there's no
Hulk
way.
zombies go nom nom.
Yeah, all right. We'll see that one next week, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting. I think most people like this card, unless maybe you're free to play and you haven't liked playing against it, which fair enough. But it will be available soon. I wouldn't be surprised if it got a nerf, but I also don't think it is nearly as much of like a nerf candidate as some of the old busted battle pass cards like Miss Marvel or Loki or Elsa. I don't think it's on the same plane of existence as those 3 cards. Those 3 cards were hilariously overpowered, whereas I think this is on just like the upper end of strong. But yeah, it's a good card. It's fun to play. I wish more battle pass cards were as enjoyable to play as this card is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a must have.
Yeah, this is the out of all the cards this month, if you only get one card, pick up Hope, which unfortunately is a little harder to do because who
Yeah.
knows when she comes to spotlights.
Yeah, you've
Probably
got-
use tokens.
If you're watching this live and you don't have Hope yet, you've got 3 days, 2 days and change. So
Get her while you can, because
or
yeah,
win
very
a, or
good
win a
card.
giveaway so you can get her. Channel your inner bad player.
Yeah.
All right, so we're running short on time. So in the last 5 minutes, I thought we would quickly talk about the OTA from earlier this week. No, it was last week. I was gonna say time flies. Illness hit me pretty
Oh,
hard.
we can speed run this one. This is
Yeah.
really
I mean, let's just start with the biggest one here. That kind of was a surprise to me, which was Mind Stone, right? Thanos was hitting tier 0 levels. The best 2 decks were Thanos by a wide margin, then followed by Discard. Post OTA, it kind of pulled Thanos in closer. It's still probably the best deck in the game, and Discard now is joined by Destroy as probably the next 2 best decks after Thanos. It didn't really change a whole lot, but Mind Stone now costs 2 instead of 1.
I hate it that all the other stones cost 1 except this one. It messes me up. Like
yeah, it does get a little like I
it-
think they outright said, yeah, we're kind of trying to figure out what to do with Thanos, but in the meantime, we're just gonna hit his best card, which is the Mind Stone. I can't imagine with how much they like, I don't know, simplicity and all this other stuff that they talk about. I can't imagine that they like one stone costs 2 and the rest cost 1.
Yeah.
This was kind of it felt like, hey, we don't really know what to do, so let's slap a band-aid on this to buy us some time to figure out what to do.
Yeah, Coal Obsidian is you can't play
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I agree, Armor. Yeah, that messes me up. I don't. It feels like it's a very inelegant solution to me. I don't like it.
It's weird. It's kind of unintuitive. I
Honestly,
can't imagine
like-
they like it either. So here's hoping. They had a developer question a while ago where it was like, do you think you're going to have to rework Thanos? And they were like, well, we're pretty confident we can fix the Thanos issue without having to rework him. But I'm curious to see how they do that because I haven't seen, I think even players kind of struggle to figure out like how exactly do you tweak Thanos, because like there are a lot of like smaller elements that make Thanos strong. And as time has shown, he's very adaptable. Like, I think if you showed this Mind Stone nerf and the Time Stone nerf to people like a month ago, they would have been like, oh, Thanos is unplayable. Like, remember when the Soul Stone got nerfed? He was terrible. But he also got a 0-9, and that 0-9 has offset the nerfs. So like he's still able to thrive.
Yeah.
0-9 and a 4-10.
Yeah.
So yeah, still the best deck in the game, still playable.
Other decks can compete now, though.
Yeah,
Like he is still top tier, top of the top, but like you can beat Thanos now. Whereas before this patch, I think it was pretty universally agreed upon Thanos was a tier 0 deck, and if you weren't playing Thanos, you were probably going to lose more. Whereas now other stuff can kind of be played.
Yeah, the next nerf was also aimed at Thanos specifically. Psylocke, -1 power. We joked about it earlier. The card still sees play in Thanos. It still ramps, as you said before. Zombies ramp is still good. Again,
you weren't playing this card for the power, right? Like,
so it doesn't make a big difference. I agree.
It's a very negligible change. Maybe you'll have 1 in 50 games where, oh no, the Psylocke being smaller cost me, but I get why they did this change, because they said Psylocke was one of the best win rate cards in the deck, but I don't think that shaving a power off of it really probably meaningfully impacted that stat, because the reason Psylocke was one of the best win rate cards in the deck was because you used it to cheat out bigger things, which is the whole Thanos thing that it does well. Right. And you can still do that. And yeah, it's just weird change.
The next change, very minor. Apocalypse went from being a 6/8 to a 6/6, still gets +4 and reinserts into your hand once discarded. I think that Apocalypse got too good because discarding became a lot less random through targeted discard. Yeah. And then when you throw in cards like Proxima, Midnight, and Corvus that just do really good things with upside on discarding, this was a pretty easy hit to make without touching the other cards. I think Apocalypse is still really good. I actually don't really...
Yeah, discard's still really good. Apocalypse is still the linchpin of it. Discard finally got the support it was missing ever since like Chavez died, and it became a real deck, and they were worried that it was essentially the second best deck behind Thanos. So if they didn't hit this a little bit, they were worried it would probably become like S tier. And this was a very minor change. The deck is still a tier 1 deck. It's still very good. I saw a lot of people. The funniest comment to me was a lot of people were mad that they hit Apocalypse instead of hitting like Hela. But ever since the Lockjaw change, Hela's a lot less good. I don't see as much of it. It's less consistent. I think people just really dislike losing to it. So they were like, I don't really care when I lose to regular discard, but I hate losing to Hela. Why didn't they nerf that? But regular discard's like the better discard deck. So this isn't surprising. And it's still really, really good. Like they went very light with this. And I think it's because they saw how bad discard was for a really long time. So they don't want to like kick it back down when it's finally having some time in the sun. But yeah, I can see why they did this.
All right, next 2 changes.
Cerebro 5!
Yeah, Cerebro 5, Adam Warlock. That's all there is to say. And Captain Marvel, Cerebro 5. Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock both getting buffed from 4 power to 5.
The Marvel change is really the only interesting one here, because we all can probably remember when the move deck was like kind of a menace with 4/5 Marvel, and so I think some people were scared of her being 4/5 again, because like it was kind of annoying when all these decks are running Miss Marvel, because like you had to play your Miss Marvel second, otherwise it wouldn't work with theirs, and blah blah blah. Also, something a lot of people don't remember is that when Miss Marvel was a 4/5, Doctor Doom summoned 4-power Doom bots, which was also very relevant at the time.
Yes.
So I think there were quite a few people who thought like, oh wow, this card's gonna be really nuts again, and the game has changed a lot since then, and it's not really nuts. Like, I like this change, I like Captain Marvel, but I don't think in the context of the things that are good, 4/5 Marvel is good enough to be played versus a lot of other decks. It's just like, it's okay, not great.
And the next changes, maybe we can just talk about them in one fell swoop, because they're all fairly similar. The Guardians cards all got buffs.
This was cool. I kind of like how they made it universal, so they all get +4. People tried it. I think the ones that really benefited the most are like the bottom 3, so like Rocket, Star-Lord, and Groot. Gamora and Drax, I don't think it really mattered very much. I guess Gamora's a little bit better if you miss. That's nice. But I think Rocket's the best of the bunch here because like a 1/5 is
It's
rather
pretty
good.
solid.
And you can weave
Yeah.
it in with a 5-drop on the final turn. It's been fun having a reason to play Rocket Raccoon again. And other than that, I don't think you really are going to see too much of this outside of some people like play the dedicated like Guardians deck. So it's cool that they're a little bit better for that. It's nice that Groot is not like the worst 3-drop in the game anymore. 3/7's pretty decent. But yeah, nothing too crazy here, and you're not going to be seeing like tons of people running the Guardians.
It's a neat buff. I mean, yeah.
Good change, just not like overly eventful.
Yeah, agreed. I like it was like thematic though. This is like the thing that they normally do. This is like, all right, this is temporary for this 1 week. and but no, I like it. I think this is fun. I'd rather them buff cards that aren't seeing play. Like, cool, let's do it.
For sure.
So
Well, we are going to have to call it there. Not only do we have a flexible scheduling podcast, we also have a flexible run rate podcast. A little bit of a shorter episode. We weren't even sure that we were going to get to do it. It was really dependent on my very, very fragile health, which seems to be trending up. So thanks, guys, for doing an impromptu one at the last minute.
yeah, and sorry I got to run tonight. It's my fault, but I'm very excited that we got to chat, and we'll have to do something again soon.
Yeah,
For sure.
new season starting, OTA, so there's definitely going to be some things to talk about. Until then, keep it Cosmo, be kind to your fellow snappers, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for those who watched live. Appreciate you being here. And take care.
Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Enough said, bub.